hello there, boys and girls. Guess who? You probably can't hear me, can you? Let's go and turn this thing off, shall we? That's much better. Oh, but you probably can't see me now, can you? Oh, that's much better. You can see me red and clear. Well, Mr. Redman here with a very important Red for Ed message delivered to you, ladies and gentlemen. But before any message is delivered, very influential man once said a great saying.
Contracts. 3 steps. First, tell them what you're going to tell them. Step 2, you tell them. Step 3, tell them what you told them.
Oh, you're back? So soon? Boy, does that Will Smith have such a buttery smooth / baby bottom soft voice. The only thing better than Will Smith's voice is Morgan Freeman's.
The Poop That Took a Pee. Chapter 1.
Well, like I told you ladies and gentlemen earlier, we're here to talk about a Red for Ed message, education. Because I took a semester at a community college, and man, you know how it goes.
Hey man, I'm a genius, all right? I'm the most talented musician in the world.
Well, I'm here to talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, about the scientific study of human social life groups in society, i.e. sociology. Then we'll talk about invisible forces.
I am your father.
No, not that kind of force. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Talk about group identity. Wait, what? My sexual identity? What do I classify as? Please, no, PC. You can't ask me that question.
I'm PC, bro. I'll throw down.
Group identity. We'll get into that a little bit as well. We'll talk about culture, material culture, and non-material culture, cross culture, and shell shock. Shock. Culture shock. Sociological competence, sociological incompetence, the false consciousness, breaking the fourth wall maybe? We'll see. And then like Will Smith said, I'm going to tell you what I just told you. So are you all ready, ladies and gentlemen, to go on this journey down education?
Here we go!
Sociology was founded in 1830 by a man some would consider the father of sociology, Auguste Comte, a Frenchman. Frenchman? Fucking Francis? Francis, if that's your father's grandfather, I'm gonna borrow Cable's time machine and I'm gonna assassinate the hell out of him. Unfortunately, Auguste Comte passed away in 1857. Yeah, that just happened. Other honorable mentions: Karl Marx, Herbert Spencer, Emil Durkheim, Max Weber, C. Wright Mills, the guy who gave us the term social imagination, stepping out of your shoes and trying on somebody else's. And thanks to those honorable mentions, we now have terms that help us better understand society. Things like those invisible forces. No, social forces. Factors, variables, things outside, external to the individual that influence individual behavior. Gee whiz, if you didn't know, most sociologists do not believe that individuals are influenced by medical traits or are inherently good or bad. Are they saying people are anti-heroes? Rather, things like social forces dictate our behavior. And this brings us to our next topic, group identity, another term in sociology used to determine individual traits based on group identity. Examples could be your race, your sex, social class, religion, city you're from, or sexual orientation. Now that we understand group identity, we can roll right into the next topic of culture. Culture is a way life is shared by members of a distinct community, i.e., their culture. Ties right along with group identity, does it? Based on your identity, can determine your culture.
Someone has to bring a little culture, and it certainly can't be someone whose entire culture powers my brake lights!
David K. Brown's definition is the symbol, meaning, and beliefs that group members share used to interpret their existence. So now that we understand culture a little better, let's dive into what someone's culture can be broken down into. Things such as material culture and non-material culture, things that stem from one's culture. Material culture is a set of artifacts, tools, norms, values, and beliefs that define a group. These can be examples of, computers, clothing, art, agriculture, etc. Physical things that stem from one's culture. Non-material culture is a set of ideas, norms, values, and beliefs that define a group. Examples can be like law, social etiquette, rules governing personal space, and mating rituals. So now that we understand culture and things that stem from culture, such as material culture and non-material culture, let's look at what happens when two cultures come together. You would think peaceful, right? That's not always the case. When two different factions have two different cultures, there is usually some type of disagreement, which can lead to confrontation.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
I will do what I must.
You will try.
For example, nations have had wars just over their religion, what they believe, their culture. Wars in the last century, to include World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, Civil War, all because of what one culture may believe doesn't agree with another. It's funny how the power of belief can be.
Just believe!
I believe! I believe! Whoa! I'm a tornado!
So now that we understand cross-culture and what may happen when two cultures collide, let's look at the experience one may experience from one culture when dealing with another person's culture. Which brings us to our next topic, culture shock. Culture shock is the idea that one may experience psychological disorientation, a negative feeling, could be a confusing feeling, or maybe a good feeling, when they cross cultures due to the fact that the retained culture norms cannot be used to interpret the new social reality. Kind of like when you see something that makes you really mad. For example, a culture that utilizes child labor, only paying them 10 cents an hour. Or you see some really bad acting and you're really confused, like, what the hell did I just look at? Wait, did that guy just get shot like 100 times, park his bike, and then die? What the hell did I just look at? And this moves us to our next topic of sociological competence. Sociological competence is much like our native ability to use the language we hear as infants. All of a sudden one day, a child begins to speak, eventually in reasonably correct forms of the past and future tense. Mom, I have to use the bathroom. Mom, I just went to the bathroom. Mom, I'm going to the bathroom. Another example of sociological competence is when you introduce to somebody who's dressed really fancy. In a certain way, you know he or she is not to be called by his or her first name. So to better understand sociological competence, let's look at its opposite, sociological incompetence. Sociological incompetence is when someone just messes up the normal course of some aspects of social life. For example, considering those affected by their actions or a failure to act. A good example of this is when someone takes a huge shit and doesn't flush the toilet. Excuse me, did you consider those affected by your actions that have to see that thing? Did you not consider your actions of flushing that thing? Another example of this are those people who refuse to pick up their pet's shit. Excuse me, did you not consider those who might step in your dog's shit? Excuse me, you have a failure to act to pick up your dog's shit, and now somebody just stepped in it. With sociological incompetence, it's kind of like that one person we all know who just can't seem to get right with anything social. You know, they just mess up with a lot of stuff. Like, they just can't get right.
You must mean can't get right. That's him right over there.
Get your ass back here, boy.
And this brings us to our last and final topic, the false consciousness. False consciousness is a powerful idea that helps account for the astonishing fact that many people who suffer from being deprived and abused are taught or otherwise seduced to think falsely about their situation, to come to the conclusion that their troubles result from their own failures to be a better worker or even a better person. False consciousness refers straightforward to the perverse fact that many situations that people who suffer from either blame themselves for their troubles or otherwise account for their suffering by referring to almost anything but the actual social cause. An example of this is you're a character inside a story, and in this story, your world is being destroyed, and everyone's telling you it's because of the aliens the world is being destroyed. But truly, it's being destroyed because the author who wrote the story decided to make that happen. Breaking the fourth wall just a little bit? Or, a good example of false consciousness, we have to use the term from C. Wright Mills, the social imagination. Remember, boys and girls, that's a term of stepping out of your shoes and stepping into somebody else's. Are you ready to use your social imagination?
Aye, aye, Captain!
You're an employee working for a fast food joint, restaurant, your local Walmart, or maybe in a local dental clinic, and you're told you don't get a fair wage. Not because your employer can't afford to pay you one, but rather because you're not a good enough person or a good enough worker to deserve a fair wage.
Mr. Venezuela makes $6 an hour at best. Okay? He's got 3 kids at home. He's got a car that barely works. He's got to clean up puke with sawdust. Okay? Then he walks into the boys' room and sees a big meaty chud staring him in the face. So when you crapped in that urinal, okay, you might as well have just dropped your pants and laid a turd right on Mr. Venezuela's head.
So to summarize what we talked about, sociology. Some honorable mentions in sociology. Social forces, things that make you a product of your environment. Group identity. Based on your group can determine individual traits. Culture, how your reality is understood. Material culture, physical things that stem from your culture. And non-material culture, things like policy, rules, laws that are part of your culture. Cross culture, when two cultures collide. Culture shock, that surprising feeling that you feel when you interact with someone else's reality that differs from your own. Sociological competence, someone who understands social interactions and considerate of others. Sociological incompetence, someone who doesn't understand social interactions or inconsiderate of others. And lastly, the false consciousness, to misunderstand your troubles that exist in your reality or your culture. I hope you ladies and gentlemen out there enjoyed this educational message as much as I did. So, if you'll excuse me, I have things that I must go do.